In the 1978 film adaptation of the novel by Jack Finney, The Invasion of the Body Snatchers, directed by Philip Kaufman, the film begins with mysterious gelatinous alien spores drifting through space and landing on Earth. These spores quickly take root, producing strange, beautiful flowers with pink blossoms that attract humans with their unusual appearance. The story centers on Elizabeth Driscoll, played by Brooke Adams, a scientist at the San Francisco Department of Health, who brings one of these flowers home. Unbeknownst to her, these flowers are the harbingers of an alien invasion. The next morning, Elizabeth notices that her boyfriend is acting strangely detached and emotionless. She confides in her colleague, Matthew Bennell, played by Donald Sutherland, who initially dismisses her concerns, but soon encounters other people reporting similar changes in their loved ones. As Matthew and Elizabeth investigate further, they discover that the flowers produce pods that replicate and replace humans while they sleep. These pod people emerge as perfect physical duplicates of their victims, but devoid of any emotion or individuality. The pod people function as a collective, aiming to spread their influence by replacing every human being on Earth. As the invasion spreads, they witness the disturbing process. While the humans sleep, the pods grow and develop into identical copies, absorbing the original humans' memories and physical traits before their bodies disintegrate. The climax sees Matthew and Elizabeth on the run, trying to evade the ever-growing number of pod people. In a chilling twist, the film ends with Matthew appearing to be one of the last unconverted humans. However, in the final scene, he reveals himself to have become a pod person, leaving the audience with a profound sense of dread and inevitability. The Invasion of the Body Snatchers serves as an allegory for media manipulation and psychological engineering. The alluring flowers represent how media can attract and captivate the public, subtly planting ideas that can lead to profound changes in behavior and thought. Just as the pod people mimic humans perfectly, media can create persuasive narratives that seem authentic and trustworthy, but ultimately aim to reshape individuals' beliefs and actions. The film's depiction of the gradual, almost imperceptible transformation of humans into pod people mirrors how media can erode individuality and critical thinking. By targeting emotions and leveraging psychological techniques, media can engineer societal conformity, suppressing dissent, and fostering a homogeneous, controlled populace. The horror of losing one's identity to an unseen, pervasive force in the film echoes the real-world fear of being manipulated and controlled by powerful media influences. Kate was met with thunderous applause at the Wimbledon's men's final this week, and this second appearance unleashed a flood of speculation about the difference in her appearance from her last public event at Trooping. And look, folks, here's the funny thing. To me, this looks like Kate. This is her. But at the same time, all these previous iterations of her look somewhat different from her latest Wimbledon appearance. Here are some images of Kate from a year ago, and this is last Sunday. This latest Wimbledon Kate certainly does seem to have a rounder and puffier face. Could it be because of cosmetic surgery? Could it be Botox? Then there's Trooping Kate, who we saw last month. And this Kate's appearance is also different from Wimbledon Kate. Here, her face looks much more taut, more stretched. Look at her eyebrows here, how they arch so dramatically because her hair is pulled back, which means that this is her hair. Compared to Wimbledon Kate, whose eyebrows are much more relaxed because her hair is loose. So it doesn't look like she's lost any hair to chemotherapy. But the press still made sure to cover their bases with articles such as this, claiming that Kate had to be heavily made up and that she was wearing a wig for her trooping appearance. But we know by now that a lot of these stories are just decoys or distractions. Everything about these people is cloaked in secrecy and obscurity under the auspices of privacy. They claim to want privacy, but at the same time, they're not private citizens. They're public figures. Do they owe the taxpayers anything as far as transparency goes? Then there is Deepfake Kate, introduced to us back in March, which, when you compare next to Wimbledon Kate, is an entirely different person altogether. You look at these images, you realize that there is no way that this person, whatever it was, sitting on the bench was Kate. The shape of her face is completely different. Her hair is different. Everything just seems completely robotic. But the more I looked at the Kate at Wimbledon, the more I'm noticing something familiar. Remember the Kate in the famous TMZ paparazzi shot that came out during the peak of the Where is Kate Odyssey earlier this year? Does this not bear a strong resemblance to Wimbledon Kate? Folks, what are the whales up to? Could this be a new launch of artificial intelligence as a way to replace them, thereby limiting their need to do royal engagements? You know, they get to go on endless vacations and just let some AI or hologram do the work for them. We saw that Buckingham Palace started exploring impersonation technology before the Queen's death. Maybe this is what Charles meant by the slimming down. Now, there are many people who don't believe this is Kate. And if that's the case, who are these people applauding for? Now, I mentioned before that we haven't heard anything from Kate. Well, here is some audio of her speaking to Carlos.
Cheering you on. We've watched a lot on telly, so it's really funny.
Yep, that sounds like Kate. Something about watching him on the telly. Now, how does such a young and vibrant woman manage to come off sounding so stilted and old-fashioned? Like everything she says is so cautious, so controlled. It's like she isn't allowed to express herself authentically. When we've seen younger pictures of Kate before her marriage into the royal family, she looked like a sassy, fun-loving young girl. What happened to this person? What did she have to sacrifice of herself in order to be deemed worthy or acceptable? Now she's just this wooden walking and talking recording device. A couple weeks back, someone in the comments asked, has Kate ever been interviewed? I think it's a good question. We've seen her in group settings speaking about something or other, but I don't believe there's ever really been a one-on-one with Kate. Are journalists not allowed to ask her certain questions? Is the royal family afraid of what she might say accidentally? How does one just completely give up their agency like this? I came across this documentary made a few years ago comparing Princess Diana to Kate.
Do you know what the difference is between Kate and Diana? Kate's a safe pair of hands. Diana never was.
And I think she's very much her own person. She's strong. Catherine is very strong. much stronger than Diana was.
Now, listening to this, you might believe that Princess Diana was some wild, irresponsible, crazy woman just because she chose to air her grievances in public. She chose to be open and to talk about what she was going through.
What effect did the depression have on your marriage?
Well, it gave everybody a wonderful new label. It's Diana's unstable and Diana's mentally imbalanced. And unfortunately, that seems to have stuck on and off over the years.
And for that, she had to be dragged. On the other hand, Kate is being talked about as the model of responsibility and level-headedness, almost like they're saying their secrets are safe with her. Because, folks, it certainly seems like Kate is being confined, and she may not be acting upon her free will. Her movements are controlled, her appearances are controlled, her communication is controlled. She's not allowed to communicate with the public. She's not allowed to communicate with the press. They keep talking about she wrote this statement and that statement. And folks, you can't read a sentence about Kate that doesn't include a mention that she's going through chemotherapy. Even though she doesn't look like someone going through chemotherapy. And did we ever find out what kind of cancer she supposedly has? Has the royal medical team given any updates at all, like from the beginning? This is clearly all one big con. So there was one person who made the comment that I am lying or twisting the facts, something to that effect. Now look, I invite you to point out something specific that you take issue with. Now that being said, I'm not just pulling information out of the air. You still have to get your information from somewhere. And if you believe that I have lied, I invite you to point out specifically where you feel that I have lied so that I can properly address it. Because if it's a situation where you're saying the British press is lying, then I can agree with you there. Because they certainly do seem to like spreading falsehoods. Or I don't know, maybe it's a situation where you only want to consume information that confirms your biases. In other words, you only want to see, read, or hear information that you agree with. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're never going to learn anything if you only allow yourself to consume information that does not challenge your beliefs. You must be willing to challenge yourself by listening to differing opinions. Otherwise, the strength of your convictions are just not that strong. So if you're saying that the British press is lying, then we can find some common ground there. But here's the problem. We have to get our information from somewhere. It doesn't just come out of the thin air. Now, if it's a situation where you disagree with my analyses, then that's something entirely different. We can look at facts and come to different conclusions. But that doesn't mean that either one of us is lying. So anyway, I thank you for contributing to the discussion, and to my subscribers, I really appreciate all of you. I think you guys are really smart. Keep the comments going. I really do learn a lot from you guys. There was another comment about the piece I mentioned about Kate doing FaceTime while she's working overseas, that it was meant to be a hypothetical. And I just want to say that I did get that it's a hypothetical, but that's the whole point. Why is the press making things up as they go along? Like they genuinely don't know what's going on with Kate. We constantly read about the amount of chemotherapy she's going through. Now, how do you know that that isn't also a hypothetical? If this is hypothetical, then why shouldn't I believe that all the rest of the stuff is also hypothetical? Especially when you are dealing with people who don't believe that honesty and transparency apply to them. Like they are entitled by their position in society to lie and to be shady. They don't believe they owe the public anything. The same public who supports them, by the way. One thing we can all agree on is that there is a vacuum of information on Kate, and she isn't speaking publicly, so no one really knows anything. So the press is pretty much out here just making things up. This statement said it all. We don't know what we don't know. And then there was another comment I want to address. I think it may be from the same person who accused me of lying. And it is something to the effect of, you are drinking the Sussex Kool-Aid. And there is so much to unpack there. Okay, so let's just address the elephant in the room here, Meghan Markle. And I don't talk about her much on here because she is not my focus. But never in more recent times has there been a figure so polarizing and able to ignite such intense feelings of hatred. And there may not be enough time to really do a deep dive here, but I still want to try to understand. Why do people hate this woman so much? The common excuse I keep hearing is that she's accused of being a narcissist. Now let's explore this. According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, a narcissist is defined as an extremely self-centered person who has an exaggerated sense of self-importance. It goes on to say narcissists tend to be petulant, highly sensitive to criticism, and tend to feel aggrieved by the world. Now, I want you to do a thought experiment. I'm going to show you a few articles and images, and I want you to replace the subject with Meghan Markle. Now, if Meghan was the subject of these pieces, I think you would have plenty justification to call her a narcissist. But instead, you tacitly give approval to the people actually displaying narcissistic tendencies. You make excuses for the ones behaving like the real narcissists. Look at Charles. Look at how he gestures so coldly to this poor child. Makes me wonder, what else are these poor children going through? But you give them a pass. Why is that? Why do William, Charles, and Camilla get to behave like the real narcissists, but Meghan gets branded with the label? Well, the answer, of course, is media manipulation. The media uses the power of language and imagery to form an opinion in people's minds. We see it done all the time in politics. But here's what you should know. The royal family, and by extension the media, they don't care about Kate. They certainly don't care about Meghan. The only thing they care about is their own power and how they can use that power to control people within the family and to go after people who go against them. All this positive press coverage that Kate receives can change overnight if she ever steps out of line. And folks, stepping out of line doesn't necessarily mean writing a tell-all or sitting down for an interview a la Martin Bashir or Oprah. Stepping out of line can simply mean making the mistake of outshining the ones in control. Notice you never hear any bad press about Camilla. It's always positive or neutral. That's because Camilla is behind the switch that can turn positive press into negative at any time. So for those of you who hate Meghan Markle for no good reason, then this is not the channel for you. And all I can say is go with God, because no one can give me a compelling reason why you think she's such a bad person. The excuses I hear make no sense. And I've seen people on here comment that she knew what she signed up for, she knew what she was getting into. And ironically, I've seen people make this comment about Kate as well. that Kate deserves whatever misery she's going through because she chased William for 10 years. The press even had a name for her. They called her Waity Katie. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There were some nasty things that were written about Kate in the beginning. Now, if you're expecting me to show you any of those nasty headlines by the press, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I will not be doing their bidding for them. We live in a society where a double standard is applied to women, especially when it comes to their past sex lives. Even Camilla has received more scrutiny than Charles in the breakdown of his marriage to Diana, even though he bears equal responsibility. And look, if you think that anybody deserves to be treated like shit because of the family they married into or simply who they married, then you're part of the problem. This is abuser-enabling language. Nobody signs up to be abused. Because what you're saying is that in marrying into this famous family, you somehow agree to expect a certain amount of abuse. And I'm sorry, but that's just a load of bullshit. And so, if the British media that is currently giving you so much satisfaction in their negative coverage of Harry and Meghan wanted to, they could turn around and do the same thing to Kate at any time. This is why I believe she is cooperating by staying silent. Because, folks, Kate knows that what the press is doing to Meghan today, they can do to her tomorrow. The press is manipulating you by exploiting some primal urge in your brain to hate. This is psychological manipulation on a grand scale, and it is very dangerous. It can lead to people getting killed. I think it should frighten everyone who values living in a free and democratic society that the press can be misused in this way to psychologically manipulate you. They are literally trying to rewrite history, another facet of media manipulation. And that's what this piece last week was all about, the disappearing stories about Rose Hambury. They are trying to rewrite history and craft a certain narrative with the intent of eliciting an emotional response from the reader. They have no interest in informing you. Gone are the days of unbiased reporting. And folks, this is one of the hallmarks of authoritarianism. And it certainly seems to be working. People seem to be asleep and primed for psychological invasion.